If you are interested in starting your own podcast, we use Buzzsprout because it is simple and easy to use. Buzzsprout can get your show listed on every major platform while giving you the resources for a great podcast website, audio players that can drop into other websites, detailed analytics to see how people are listening to your podcast, and tools to promote your episodes. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and that is why over 100,000 podcasters are already subscribed to Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Following the link in our episode descriptions lets Buzzsprout know that we sent you. So in return, you will receive a $20 Amazon gift card from Buzzsprout while signing up for a paid plan. Most importantly, every subscription through our link is always appreciated and helps support our show so we can continue delivering the quality content that you guys listen to. That being said, back to the show.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Junkies. I'm Andrew.
This is Joe.
And today we're coming at you with a book review. And we're going to go back and, we're going to do some DC today. We got The Flash Rebirth by Geoff Johns and Ethan Van Sciver. And that's all we got for you really today. So, Joe, you want to start us off?
All right, so 6-issue series from 2009 to 2010. We're back into the Renaissance. We're reading a story that came out by him right after Final Crisis, actually. So because we read Final Crisis and the two go hand in hand, this made that much more exciting.
And it was way better.
It was way better. We'll get into that, but I had a really good time reading it. So right after Final Crisis and right before Flashpoint, issue 1. The series starts with two men in a lab, and they're running a DNA test on a neighbor of a woman that was recently murdered. Because the neighbor has a pretty extensive criminal record, they wanted to start there. The DNA test didn't match, but one of the men was unethically telling that scientist to make it match. And while they're arguing, a man breaks in and murders the both of them with a lightning bolt staff. The murderer grabs the chemicals in the lab and doses himself so he can be just like Barry Allen.
From there, that's kind of like the prelude that kind of sets up all the stuff that's going to go on later on, obviously. But, we get to see Barry's back. Everyone's pumped, aside from the rogues. We see them being like, oh, shit, he's back. And sure as shit, Barry's back, dog. So, there's a parade being thrown. There's a bunch of parties he needs to go to. We get to see a little bit of the overarching DC universe. We get to see, it was cool seeing like the JSA there. It's always good to see them, especially, in the context of the Flash being so tied in with the JSA, with Jay Garrick and all that. So that was pretty cool to see. And I like how Jay, during, their little meetup, he kind of says that Barry's the one that kind of inspired him to return. So, if you don't know, Jay Garrick's the first Flash. He's the Golden Age Flash. Barry, he's the second. He may be the more prominent Flash, but he's younger. But Jay pretty much hung it up. And, he says that Barry's the one who kind of got him, he kind of gave him that youthful energy and knowing that, that sense of justice, always kind of prevails, whether he's guilty or not guilty. And I like the dynamic he has with Barry because Barry's always called him Mr. Garrick and stuff like that. Even though it looks like even Jay looks up to Barry, even being the younger guy.
Barry's got respect for his elders.
He does, which is how I like that it contrasts with Wally, who off rip, when he met Jay, he just calls him Jay day one. Barry's like, oh, hi, Mr. Garrick. And Wally's like, what's up, Jay? I like how the duality of the two Flashes. Well, I guess three, but you know what I'm saying. So I thought it was really cool kind of showing that dynamic, especially, with us growing up with Wally as our Flash, to have Barry come back and kind of, go back to that Silver Agey kind of camp and corniness. I guess you can call good manners camp and corniness in today's age, but it's cool. Another thing I like too, I'm sorry to just keep talking here, but we get to see Wally with his family, which is not something that we get to see anymore. They kind of did that away with the New 52, as they did away with a lot of cool things and interesting dynamics. But, he's got his two kids, Linda, but now he's kind of de-aged and he's kind of trying to fight back because, in the current continuity, Wally still remembers, but that's an aside. And then we see kind of just more of the Flash family, like Bart Allen. He's there, what is he, the grandson or is he the great grandson?
Yeah, I think they said he was Barry's grandson.
Bart was. From the future.
Yeah.
He's, Impulse. he's not as much impressed by Barry returning. Like, he's kind of like, whatever, dude, because he seems to be more of a Wally fan given their history. But he does, wonder why is Barry the only one to really like escape the Speed Force in that way? So I thought that was really cool. Bart's a little bit of a shithead during the beginning of this story, but he's still kind of thinking about the big questions here.
Well, you also got to think too, he's so young. Bart is, even though he's from the future, they have him as like what would you say, like 16, maybe?
Yeah, if that.
So we get all four Flashes here. We get Jay, who is the OG. We get Barry, which is the most iconic Flash. We get Wally, which is the one we grew up with. And even a little bit of Bart, who's kind of jealous of Barry or just doesn't really want a relationship with him. Like, to your point, he was always close with Wally. But because Barry has been gone for so long, because it wasn't until Final Crisis that he came back. So it was probably 20 years in comics. Yeah, maybe 30. So since Barry's been gone for such a long time, it seems like he has like some anxiety coming back with how fast things have changed in everyday life. And it's at this point too, we get to see a visit from Hal Jordan. He ends up finding Barry, and Barry's avoiding all the parties and like the parades going on for him. And Barry vents to Hal about his time in the Speed Force and how he feels like it was only an accident that he escaped. And he knows that the Speed Force wants him back. He also mentions that Wally kind of has filled his boots, and so there's not really a need for him to be back at all. But Hal's trying to convince him to be a little more optimistic, a little more grateful for whatever the reason is he's back. But Barry is nervous nonetheless, can't seem to shake it. And so he goes to leave so he can be proactive about whatever's next for him. But it's at the very end of this issue that a villain named Savitar pops out for the Speed Force somehow. And as Barry grabs on to Savitar, Wally gets struck with pain, and the villain turns into dust right after Barry touches him. In his final words, he tells Barry that he's the beginning and the end.
That was definitely cool. That was a cool way to wrap the issue. There's a couple things I wanted to go back on. When you brought up how Hal came to, come and see him, I like the dynamic of Barry kind of explaining his relationship with Hal, where he's like, I didn't like him at first. He says he was a little too reckless and he stared at Wonder Woman for a little too long. And
that was hilarious.
I was like, he sounds like one of the boys.
Right.
But then Barry's like, oh, he found out he was a cop, and that's what changed everything for him. And I was just like, yeah, dude, back to blue. Just kidding. But it's because of how it was with his dad. He always, he obviously worked in forensics and stuff, but always trying to prove that his dad was innocent, which is also a part of this issue. Barry says he could never catch the cop car, the one that took his dad away to prison. No matter how fast he was, he could never in his mind catch that cop car to free his dad. So I thought that was cool, like how all of that tied in. And I, having not read a lot of the Silver Age stuff until after the fact, seeing their dynamic and their kind of mutual respect, kind of like two dudes, just bros that just happen to meet because they're superheroes, and like having that mutual respect and becoming kind of like a team. I thought that was cool. But I'm really glad Savitar got burned up and killed, because he sucks. It's an issue. They threw him on that Flash CW show, and he also sucked on there too. So, good riddance, Savitar.
To your point, before we get into issue 2, like the relationship between Hal and Barry, the two really go hand in hand more than people think, because after Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman were introduced by DC, Marvel came out with the Captain America. And then so like in retaliation, DC kind of, revamped Flash and brought Hal Jordan to the scene, because there was a Green Lantern before Hal Jordan too. So like just how Barry has Jay, Hal has Alan Scott. And so DC really tried to push like a science fiction element to their stories during the Silver Age. And so like they really pushed a lot of Flash and Green Lantern stuff together. So I like it when the two characters are together. And then Marvel kind of took off right after that and started launching, everything that's important and what makes Marvel Marvel. But it was a really cool time in comic history.
Yeah. And to your point, that's what makes DC is the strong history of legacy characters, and them not being afraid to have somebody new take up the mantle, but not fully like washing their their hands of the old character. Like, we still see every iteration of a Green Lantern or Flash around in varying degrees, but the fact that, you know, we can pass on the mantle and it not kind of get lost in translation or be completely meaningless is kind of cool, and is a hallmark of DC is even today. That said, let's get into issue 2. So we see, you know, Grodd and Gorilla City or whoever, they're up to some funky stuff, a lot of, you know, kind of wall cave paintings and stuff like that, kind of prophesizing what's going on. Barry's still tweaking about solving crime. He says, I can't slow down, I gotta go do it now. And you know, he's the fastest man alive, but he's only thinking about, you know, not doing anything. This guy hasn't had time to take a shit since the Speed Force, and he's just like, you know what, I gotta run, I gotta go save whoever's next. And he don't even know where he's running, dude. He's just, you know, maybe he's anxious. Got me, dude. But he's running, sees the cops in front of Iris's house, so he's like, oh shit. And then he gets in there, and it's no big deal. Kind of goes down a trip down memory lane. You know, there's a cop guy whose name I do not recall if it was even stated, talking to Iris about, you know, what's going on, you know, oh, is he back, kind of, and she kind of spills the beans like, yeah, he's really back. And, you know, they kind of want him to come in because there's been like a shitload of like cold cases they haven't been able to figure out since he's been gone, you know, and, you know, they kind of go down a memory lane of, you know, him and Iris kind of getting to know each other. He was always office, like kind of like slow guy. He was never really fast, which is ironic because he's the Flash. So he was always late to stuff. He always moved. He kind of dragged ass on all of his assignments, apparently, even though he did them with care. But it's just kind of like a little recap of that. I like it because it does kind of give you some more insight to the character if you're not already familiar. Because you got to remember at this time, the people reading it, unless you were reading around Crisis, you don't know Barry that well. He'd been gone for a sizable amount of time. So it kind of gets you up to speed and kind of modernizes his Silver Age stuff for a modern audience. But that's where things start kind of breaking down again. All the homies start getting speed seizures. Jay got one, Bart had a more intense one, and even Wally and his kids got them too. So, you know, we start to see a disturbance in the force, for lack of better terms.
That's hilarious. Yeah. When Barry and Iris are talking about all that information that officer disclosed, Wally West comes in and tells them that they're all having more accidents now than ever. When Savitar died, all the Flashes keep getting hurt except for Barry. In addition to that, there's been like a really peculiar lightning storm in the town that Barry was born in, and there's also the remains of the Black Racer from Final Crisis. And so Barry is about to examine those remains like he did with Savitar, but he's suddenly attacked by Savitar's old lady. Barry just barely touches her. What's crazy is she turns into dust too, and Wally starts convulsing again. So Wally tries to fight it, as what's in front of him is the scariest part yet, because Barry just became the new Black Racer.
Yeah, dude, that was ominous as hell. That's not something that I expected, you know, coming out of, oh, hey, look, Barry's back. But now all of a sudden he's like the scariest shit to hit the scene. Like, if you're a speedster, you don't want your buddy Barry around. So, yeah, I mean,
just keep seizing Wally.
Yeah, dude, I guess you just got to deal with it. But yeah, I don't have much to add to issue 2. You say we move on to issue 3 then?
Let's do it. 3 of 6. So Jay and Bart find Wally and Barry, and pleasantly so does Hal and Iris. Iris tells Barry that he has to slow down and make time for his friends and his family. Shit starts going haywire, so Hal puts an orb around Barry and flies off with him to isolate him from the other Flashes. But Wonder Woman and Superman join because the situation just keeps getting more intense with the lightning bolts coming after Barry. And Barry somehow escapes Hal's orb and makes the decision to run right back to the Speed Force so he won't have to say his goodbyes again. That was really sad. Yeah.
Yeah, he made an executive decision. He even says as much. He's like, well, they'll understand. And it's just like, I guess.
What?
He's like, bro, like, they don't understand anything. You've been gone for 20 years. You show up out of nowhere and then you willingly disappear again.
Yeah, just kind of kick the bucket.
Like, he's like, oh, sorry, guys, I'm going out for milk. And then
you never see dad again.
Yeah, pretty much. He's like, oh,
Bart's
damn, this
like,
family.
I knew I hated that fucker.
You old bastard. bastard.
Right. But the scene after that's pretty cool too. Superman's there, and because he's like the only one that can keep up with him other than the Flashes, which he's been isolated from, he goes to chase after him. And sadly, this isn't a run for charity though. So Barry Allen really kicks it into high speed this time and just fucking ditches him in the dust. And his body starts to become electric while he's running straight for the Speed Force and kind of straight for death too. As he's running right through all of his memories, he continues to repeat himself. As long as he can remember Iris, everything will be all right. Further down memory lane, the more he forgets and only remembers he's thinking about someone, but can't really think of the name.
Yeah,
and
like 3 panels later.
I know.
He forgot quick, dude.
Yeah. As he finally remembers his own name, he stops and sees Max, Quick, and the Reverse Flash and the Speed Force. Which, by the way, I'll pause right here because I'm sure you have more to add to this issue, but not being like somebody who's well versed in Flash as I am other characters, I don't really know anything about Max or Quick prior to this story.
You see, now I would like to say I'm more well versed, but I didn't read a ton of, their stuff. So I mean, they were all kind of around the same time as Savitar, Max Mercury, Johnny Quick, Liberty Bell, Jesse Quick. There's a cajillion speedsters. And I'll be frank, I don't care about many of them, but somebody who does care about them is Bart. Bart's a big fan of Max Mercury. Max Mercury is kind of like a father figure to him as well. Really kind of took him in and taught him a lot of things. So we kind of see the stakes with Max Mercury. With Johnny Quick, we see his daughter. She's trying to figure out like his speed equation so that she can, because I believe her connection to the Speed Force has been weakened. So that's another reason why all of these characters have been, brought up. They're all trapped in the Speed Force and trying to get out. Even Max Mercury says he doesn't have a lightning rod, and all the other Flash characters do. Everybody has someone that they care about or cares about them at least, and apparently Max Mercury is a loner.
They're just sad. And what do we mean by the lightning rod is exactly that. Like, as Flash, or they're all Flash, but as Barry Allen was saying, like, I can't forget about Iris, like that's his lightning rod that kind of keeps him from just losing himself completely. And so the reason why they're stuck there is because they don't have a tie like Barry does or like Wally does, for example, with like Linda.
Yeah, like Max's lightning rod is like his fleshlight and his like nightstand.
No, his jerk off station.
That's all he's got to look forward to, bro. So he's like, I may as well just hang out here.
Yeah, I've been trapped here. A bunch of tissues on the ground.
Oh, why is the Speed Force all sticky, guys? The friction suit doesn't work here, does it? But
awkward.
That aside, I want to go back to the Superman ordeal because they're neck and neck for a little bit there, but it's not long before he leaves him in the dust. But before he does that, he gets right next to him and they're talking to each other. He's like, Barry, you don't gotta do this, and he's like, yeah, I do. And he's like, I've even raced you before and I've even won. And Barry just looks over with like that look in his eye and he's like, those were for charity.
Like a racehorse too.
Yeah, dude. He's like, get fucked, Clark. He's like, I'm faster.
Turns into a real Clydesdale and gets the fuck out of there.
It's like, it's my whole personality. I have to be faster than you. But yeah, I mean, that's all I got to touch on for the rest of that issue. I say let's go on to issue 4 now. So we're in the Speed Force again. Oh yeah, credit to Max Mercury though. And not just for the fleshlight, but like he is the one who kind of spills the beans and connects all the dots for Barry, because Barry to this point has no idea really what the problem is, but Max lets him know that it's the Reverse Flash, and that's no bueno, because I love seeing him pop up though, because he's such a dickhead and he's also just so spiteful. He's like Black Manta, but he's so much cooler in my opinion. But that aside, the Reverse Flash thought it would take closer allies to die before Barry like trying to rejoin the Speed Force. He's like, I thought I was going to have to push the envelope farther, but Barry just willingly kind of cut bait quick and was like, fuck it, I'm going back. And Thawne's been dead this whole time, but Thawne is like a master time traveler and he's kind of like a paradox, so he can't really die. So I don't really know how comic book logic, dude. But long story short, the Reverse Flash has his own Speed Force. It's a reverse Speed Force. Just like how Barry is the introduction and the sole driver of the Speed Force that everybody else taps into, he's kind of like the yin to his yang, where Reverse Flash propagates his own reverse speed force, which is like the antithesis of everything that Barry and the squad can do.
He's a new kind of speedster, so he runs so hard that he generates negative energy.
Turbo hater.
Yeah.
He's just a turbo hater, dude. And he's pissed that Barry sacrificed himself to become the ultimate hero because he was pretty much bulletproof, dude. His reputation, I mean, he was no longer there. Barry was seen as this selfless, you know, perfect hero, and he couldn't get his revenge on him until now. And he did. He turned Barry into a weapon against his own family. Thankfully, Barry's a quick thinker, and he didn't kill.
Yeah, exactly. He basically made it so he became the Black Racer. So like when he disintegrated those other people, he was hoping he would touch his family and disintegrate them. Dude. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy, but it's a good idea, except Barry apparently isn't real sentimental with his folks. But aside, he didn't give no one a hug, dude. No hugs. Yeah, ask Iris. Yeah, Barry wasn't supposed to be a martyr and just show up there all of a sudden, but he did. And you know, while all this is going on, Wally decides I'm heading into the Speed Force 2 to rescue everybody because you know what? He says, "Fuck it, I'm quicker than everyone here. I can get out, no problem." So you know, he trudges on in there, and then you know, obviously everybody else has got to, you know, jump in too. But that's where we see Wally's kids, Irie and Jai. They're using their powers, and that's when Reverse Flash shows up there. Hell no, because she gets like the full powers, and I believe she becomes a speedster at that point in time. That may be later, forgive me. But regardless, Reverse Flash is like drawn there, and he's just like, "Your mom home?" And it's just like, oh shit.
Right. And Barry can't even get out of the Speed Force. Reverse Flash tortures him while he's there, and then goes straight for Wally's family as Wally's trying to rescue Barry. So it's kind of like a triangular thing going on.
Yeah, dude, he's going for the women and children first, dude.
I know. What a villain.
He is. He's arguably more evil than most.
And I know they mentioned this later, but I guess I'll get it out of the way now. If he's this powerful, why not just kill Barry? But he actually needs Barry to exist in order for his negative speed force to exist. So he's dependent on Barry being alive. And so instead of killing him, he just makes his life miserable.
Yeah, dude, he's just like a mosquito you can't kill.
Come on, with like welts all over your neck and like just pissed off, and that's the Reverse Flash.
That's him. That's what he does. It was me, Barry. Remember that time you shit your pants? It's because I pulled your pants up as soon as you hit the toilet. It's just like it's just like spiteful stuff, dude.
He did say stuff like that. It's like, okay.
Remember when you fell down the stairs? I pushed you. It's
right.
Just like, goddamn. What's goofy is in like his like time travel. It's like everything he did still made Barry the Flash. It was just like a minor inconvenience. But why would you let him get to become the Flash, even though you need your reverse speed force?
Well, because he needs the speed force to exist, because he feeds off of his speed force. And then the second part of that is he learns from Barry too.
But wouldn't he rather do his ultimate goal and just get rid of Barry and get his revenge?
Like you said, he's like Black Manta. Like his existence is just being a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I know. And you know, I'm just, you know, thinking around his logic there. It's like he could really get his shit done. I mean, it'd be like a sacrifice for himself. Like he'd be toast, but like, couldn't he like die happy knowing that Barry got like completely fucked over? Guess not. I think he probably has more fun like that.
Yeah, I think so too. It's not about the end goal. It's about like the notches in between for him.
Right. Okay. Well, that aside, I've put a little note in here that says Max can't escape because he's lonely.
Damn.
I think we already touched on that enough. But, you know, let's get back to Thawne threatening to strangle Wally's kids. So Bart and Jay come to rough him up, dude, just in the nick of time, thank God. And the Reverse Flash takes away Jay's aura that, you know, saves him from friction, and he just lights his ass on fire, which was crazy. It's like, I didn't know he could take away friction. And then Bart extinguishes the flame with his like little hand tornado shit, and then wallops Thawne, which I thought was cool because Bart's actually, you know, a badass chaos. I mean, he's been aged up and aged down, and even Reverse Flash says so. He's like, I don't even know how you survived being aged up and down so many damn times, but you shouldn't even be here. But that's unrelated as well. But that's where we find out, if you didn't already know, that Bart is half related to Thawne. His mom is a Thawne and his dad is an Alan. So that kind of ties into the whole family Thawne hating conundrum, which I thought is cool. That it kind of becomes a more familial tie. It's kind of reminiscent almost of Kang the Conqueror and Reed Richards in a way, time travelers who are descendants of, the hero in a way, I guess. But, that's cool. And, Barry says Max's family, after, they have that little exposition there. Barry, I made this note too. Barry says Max's family, kind of like Fast and the Furious. They just find, anybody who could run quick. And then at the end of the day, they have like a few Coronas and they grill hamburgers. And he's just like, oh, here, you could come too, Max. And it's just like, the only one who cares if Max is there is Bart. But Thawne, back to that, is about to toss up Bart for good. But then obviously the whole squad shows up to come beat his ass. And that's kind of where we leave the issue. What am I missing, Joe?
I thought it was cool when Wally goes into the Speed Force to save Barry, because if Barry doesn't get out with Wally, like Wally's family's in for it. He keeps thinking of Linda the same way that Barry was thinking of Iris. And so there's a theme in this book that the only way that they can get in and out of the Speed Force is by having Good Strange. And for whatever reason, Max was very insightful when relaying all this information to Barry and how he must run, because everything begins with him, in the sense that when he was hit with the lightning that gave him his powers, he actually created the Speed Force. Everything he runs, it creates an electric energy that exists in like every dimension, universe, and era. And the more running the Reverse Flash does, the more his Speed Force will grow and eat away at Barry's until it destroys him. So basically, he's telling Barry to create enough fuel so that he can go save his loved ones. And while Wally continues to run to the Speed Force to find Barry, and Barry's actually leaving so he can catch the Reverse Flash. The Reverse Flash is shocking the kids, and and thank God, like you said, Jay and Bart were there to show up to stop him temporarily. But the squad gets back just in time to fight him, and that brings us to issue 5.
Let's go. And from there, we're kind of going down memory lane again. It's just kind of young Barry and his mom breaking down on the side of the row. Mom's fixing stuff, which it turns out later on, Thawne, the Reverse Flash, caused that car to break down. But Barry's just like, why don't people stop? Why are they in a hurry? And obviously ironic things for a guy who can move super quick later on in life. But that kind of helps give him his sense of purpose that we see, later on. Like, he'll stop and help anybody. He's never in too big of a hurry. But he also mentions he's always been out of step. Before, he was always the slow guy. He was always like a few paces behind. Obviously, now that contrasts with him being always eons ahead because he's the fastest man alive. But once we get out of that little sequence there, we see all the Flashes are fighting when Jay kind of sets off like a sonic boom, I believe with his helmet, which was pretty sick. But that's when we see the Reverse Flash. He says, I got a trick from one of your friends, Wally. And he snaps his fingers and just sonic booms the whole fucking lot of them, dude, which was cool. I like that, the two Reverse Flashes, one way or another, kind of helped each other out with their little moves, especially because they're both dickheads to each of their respective Flashes, like almost in the same way. And so I really like that.
Yeah, so Wally has his own Reverse Flash named Zoom.
Hunter Zolomon.
And so that's where he got the technique from. So there's like an equivalent there. I'd say the most important thing about this issue, it was very action-packed. There wasn't a lot to remark on. Barry basically gets his confidence back, and all the Flashes are teaming up to fight the Reverse Flash. And they even bring reinforcements. So Wally's daughter comes in to join the fight. And regardless, Barry and the Reverse Flash get isolated somehow. The Reverse Flash shares with him that he has been visiting and torturing Barry since he's been a kid. And he admits to murdering his mom at this point.
That's crazy.
And yeah, so what Berger was saying earlier, Barry Allen's whole story as the Flash is that his mom was murdered at a young age and his dad went to prison for it. He knows his dad was innocent and his dad has always said he was innocent, but because the Reverse Flash is such an asshole, he and because he couldn't murder Barry himself, he murdered his mom and framed his dad for the murder. And so that's why Barry Allen grew up to be a forensic scientist, because his whole life he wanted to prove that his dad was innocent so he could be with his dad again. And so this whole story kind of puts two and two together for Barry and makes him more upset than ever and like ready for revenge. And if that wasn't enough, the Reverse Flash tells Barry that his next goal is to murder Iris before they even met each other.
Yeah, and he literally says, as long as I kill her, it'll be all right. And it's just like, what a dick. But like,
wouldn't you want her to know him and then kill her though? That was the only part that dude. I didn't understand. It's like, wouldn't that hurt more?
I guess not, because if that's the only thing that's brought him happiness, is like he'll never know that happiness. So he's just like, fuck you, dude. You don't get chicks. You're going to be like Max Mercury.
Just stuck.
You know, heading into the last issue here, that's where it gets cool. We see the cosmic treadmill rear its head. And I love that because it's so goofy. You know, him and Wally, you know, they're running as quick as can be, trying to get that cosmic treadmill bumping so that they can go time travel, you know, directly to where they want to. Because if they just run without the treadmill, they have no control of where and when they end up. But if they're on the treadmill, they can pretty much calculate it with the vibrations and all this hoopla, and they can get where they want to go. So I thought it was cool that they brought that back to kind of trigger the final battle here.
Yes, it's something Barry created because the Reverse Flash has the ability to travel wherever he wants, but the rest of them don't. And if I didn't say it before, the only reason that Barry escapes the Speed Force the second time around is because Wally went in and saved him. He's running and running as hard as he can, but he just needed a little extra push from Wally, and that's what saved Wally's family and brought all the Flashes together. And so to your point, that cosmic treadmill is very important for the future of all the Flashes, and so they have a little more control as to where they're running to if they have to change time and all that.
And I mean, from there though, that like you said, it's a lot of kind of action in this one as well. It's kind of a quick resolution here. You know, they get on the cosmic treadmill. Barry and Wally arrive pretty much just in time to save Iris. And, you know, they're kind of having a spat, obviously. You know, they're throwing punches, exchanging words. And I do like that, Zoom is just like, he tells Wally, he's like, one of your kids is going to ruin your life in the future. And Wally's like, what? He's like, no, you're not. No, he's not. You're a liar. And he's just like, no, dude, I know I'm from the future. And he's just like throwing in digs, too. He's like, even if I'm going to lose, he's like, I'm going to make you sit and think about this one. And it's so cool. He's going down with the ship. But, you know, pretty much they scoop him up, they run, and the containment tube thing that Barry was being held in with the Justice League, they pop out there, they run and chuck him into there, and then they zap his ass, and the day saved. Hoorah. So I mean, that pretty much does wrap it. There's like a few little things that happen afterwards that would kind of set up the next stories during the Flash, but
they turned him into a burnt hot dog, dude. It's just like the Anti-Monitor.
Yeah, dude, that's what he gets.
Yeah, it is. He deserves it. And they're finally able to like contain him so he can't like recharge after all that crap too.
Yeah, for sure. And then, you know, after that, you know, hoorah, day saved. They start throwing more parades like that. Whatever, you know, the city must have a large budget. I don't know. If I paid taxes over there, I'd be pretty upset that this guy gets a whole museum and he gets 3 parades a week and I'm over here just like, what am I supposed to do, dude? You telling me I have to pay higher summer taxes because of this? But that aside, things are finally going good. Barry realizes he can slow down, dude. And, you know, we get a little exposition that, you know, we see Dr. Alchemy escaped. Had nothing to do with this story, but he's gone now. He's free. We see Zoom in his weird little contraption holding him in prison. Well, we see Thawne in his weird little thing talking to Hunter Zolomon in his wheelchair. He's like, hey, I got some ideas. We could work together. And it's just like, well, who the fuck decided to put those two next to each other? Like the two most sociopathic I mean, how do you even book the Reverse Flash? He's from the future. Like, can you? You don't have fingerprints in your system. But we're anywho, and then we see the gorillas, we see Abracadabra all there, we see the rogues reuniting, and Barry finally decides, hey, I can attend a party. I'm not going to be a dickhead and no call, no show all my parties. So
There was a cool moment. He tells Bart that the next step is trying again. And that's what brings us back to the parade where all the Flashes can finally celebrate. So at last, Bart and Barry kind of get along for the first time.
That was cool. And this is way off topic compared to that. But when he shows up to his final party with the Justice League, and, he has this little quips, he's like, am I late? What we see just before.
I was going to say rewind a little bit.
That's what I'm saying is, we're at the Justice League party and, Black Canary's getting on Green Arrow's ass. And she's like, can you just wait a minute with the cake? And dude's already got like a whole plate full of cake doing a real Joe type move saying, I can't wait. He's already munching, dude, before Barry even
not
gets
even
there.
At his own party yet. And then Green Arrow's eating cake.
Yeah,
how rude. I would do that.
Yeah, I thought of you when I read it. I was like,
oh shit, that's a real Zonka thing to do.
It's a Zonka party. But that said, it was like a nice little bow to the end of the story. It kind of brought like that little kind of campy, goofy Barry Allen kind of AG charm to the end of the story after all the shit he just went through. And I thought that it wrapped everything nicely with a bow. You got any final thoughts before we get into ratings?
Yeah, so, when Barry shows up to the party and says, sorry, I'm late, I thought that was a fun note to cap the story because, like you said, for the first time in the whole story, he's not anxious and he finally learns how important it is to slow down so that he can make time for his friends and family. And then he returns to work and tells the staff members that he's given up on his mom's case. So there's some closure there too, now knowing in his head that the Reverse Flash was the one that killed his mom. And there's a lot of unsolved cases that piled up in his disappearance. He seems pretty happy to get back to work. And then on the flip side of that too, the rogues seem pretty eager to get back to work as well, now knowing Barry's back. And we see Barry and Iris catching up, and he admits that how fast he likes to get things done and how this whole experience has taught him that friends and family are more important to him than anything. And I like this part because the whole series was full of action and mystery, but at the very end, Johns writes a little bit of a romance in there. And so this book has a little bit of everything for everybody.
I'm there with you. Sounds like you've said your piece. I'm going to just do my little wrap up spiel and probably be very redundant as I always do just before I give my ratings. Let's get into it. So writing, amazing. I think this is one of the better things that I've read from Johns, at least recently and at least for the podcast. I had a lot of fun reading it. If you listen to our last episode, if you listen to our Final Crisis episode, rather, you'll know I didn't enjoy that. This was a relief. It was only 6 issues. It read very quick. It was very captivating. Like, I actually wanted to read the next issue, and it was easy to do blocks of this book at a time. Art was good. No issues here. Looked good to me. Yeah, there's not too much I can say. Yeah, it was great. There's not too much I can say outside of that other than if you're a Flash fan, this is must read, I would argue. If you're a Silver Age fan or just DC fan in general, I would highly recommend this book more so than almost most of the other books that we've read. And this is easily amongst my favorite that I've read so far. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 9.5 out of 10. That's high for my scale, but this is what I've been waiting for, I guess. It was short and sweet, but there was no filler. It was all killer. They understood the assignment and they executed everything that they were going for, in my opinion. If you disagree with me, that's cool for you, but I actually love this one. So where you at, dog?
This is the first time ever that you've rated something higher than me. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I'm right there with you, but you gave it that extra 0.5. But the shit was fire. I don't really know much about Max or Quick, so I would have preferred a little bit of background information on that.
I feel Jin, bro.
I know, but otherwise super solid, especially because we read this right after Final Crisis, and this story was pretty heavily connected to the outcome of that event. Also, for being a Flash book, they did a great job of connecting this story to the whole DC universe in general. The book looked great. The writing was top notch. I think I may like John's take on Flash even better than I like his run on Green Lantern. In fact, this may be my new favorite thing I've read by Geoff Johns. I wasn't glued to the pages like I was Preacher, for example, but I was engaged the whole entire time, which is important. There weren't any dry spots. I liked the story could be taken in so many different directions, and I liked that they left it open ended. Like you said, like that thing that they mentioned at the very end didn't have anything to do with, what comes next. And there's a lot of different directions that they could have taken it. Now, knowing they followed it up with Flashpoint is a little disappointing, but this book further reinforced that Wally is my favorite Flash. So that's my last note.
Very cool. So yeah, glowing reviews from the CBJ boys. Feel free to read it. If you disagree with us, you can, let us know why. I don't know if we'll agree with you or take that into account, but you can feel free to voice that opinion as you always can. Check us out, social media, the deal. If you're new to the pod, in case you just started downloading or you just happen to stumble across us, you can always go back through all of our back catalog. That's everywhere. We upload everything to YouTube as well. It's audio format only as of right now. Depending on what the future brings, we'll see if that changes. But, we have that. We're on every podcast medium you can get pods. So, tell a friend, tell a family, tell a neighbor. Not going to ask too much of you. You know what the deal is by now. And yeah, with that, you want to hit them with what we're going to do next time, Joe?
So we're going to read something by Grant Morrison, art by Frank Quitely. It's going to be Batman and Robin, Batman Reborn. So it's going to be the first volume of that, which also started in 2009. So DC was putting out some pretty good stuff around then. So we're hoping that's going to be pretty good too.
God willing. And with that, thank you all for listening yet again, and we will catch you next time.
All right, guys.